This woman may look like every other person, but to Schopenhauer she wasn't just dangerous. She was a threat to the soul itself, not because she held power, but because she made men give theirs away willingly. Arthur Schopenhauer was not an ordinary philosopher. He didn't write to comfort people or make them feel good about life. He wrote to expose its hidden forces, the ones that control us without our permission. And one of those forces in his eyes was the quiet, invisible power women had over men. It wasn't physical strength or political power, it was something deeper, something hidden in plain sight. To Schopenhauer, women didn't need to control men openly. Nature had already designed a system where men would gladly hand over their freedom without realizing it. He believed that behind every romantic feeling, every soft word, every beautiful face, there was something much older at work, something nature had created to keep life going, and men, lost in emotions and desire, couldn't see it. He didn't hate women, but he deeply feared what they represented, the power of nature to trap the mind using pleasure, love, and beauty. A man could fight in wars, survive pain, and endure death, but if he wasn't careful, he could be completely defeated by his own feelings, especially when it came to a woman. That's what truly scared Schopenhauer. So when he looked at a woman, he didn't just see a person. He saw a test, a mirror, a force that could either wake a man up or pull him deeper into a life controlled by instincts. And the question he asked was simple: will you keep your freedom, or will you give it away with a smile, thinking it's love? If a man fails to understand this one thing about women, Schopenhauer believed he's not just doomed to heartbreak, he's doomed to live a lie. Schopenhauer saw danger not in violence or betrayal, but in illusion. He believed that most men live under a powerful illusion when it comes to women and love. They think they're making free choices. They think they're chasing happiness, but in reality, they're being pulled by something much older and much stronger, the blind will of nature. Nature, according to Schopenhauer, doesn't care about your dreams, your goals, or your peace of mind. It only wants one thing: survival of the species. And the easiest way for nature to get what it wants: make men fall in love. Make them feel like they've found the one. Make them believe they've chosen her when in truth nature has already chosen her for them. That's the trap. And it's not easy to see because it feels so real. The joy, the excitement, the passion, it all feels like truth. But Schopenhauer argued that these feelings are tools. They're bait. And the moment a man takes the bait, he's no longer in control. What's at risk isn't just heartbreak. It's your sense of self, your goals, your direction. A man who loses himself in this illusion can wake up years later, wondering how his life became something he never wanted. Schopenhauer warned that this misunderstanding could destroy a man, quietly, without any clear sign. Not with a knife, not with a blow, but with soft hands, kind words, and a smile. That's why he feared it more than death, because death is final. But this keeps you alive, just not yourself. To understand Schopenhauer's fear, we have to go deeper into how he saw the world, not just people, but life itself. At the center of his thinking was something he called the will. It wasn't willpower or personal motivation. It was much bigger. Schopenhauer believed the will was an invisible force that pushes all living things to survive, grow, and reproduce. It doesn't think. It doesn't care. It just wants to keep life going, no matter the cost. Every human action, he said, even the ones that feel personal or emotional, is secretly controlled by this will. When we eat, it's the will. When we fight, it's the will. And when we fall in love, that too is the will doing its work. Schopenhauer believed that women in particular are used by nature as instruments of this will, not because they choose to be, but because that's how life has shaped them. Their beauty, their charm, even the way they speak. These aren't just personal traits. To him, they were tools, silent weapons used by nature to keep men attached, distracted, and driven by reproduction. He didn't say this to insult women. He was pointing to something bigger, the idea that neither men nor women are fully in control. We are all part of a larger system, but while men might believe they're choosing love or acting from the heart, Schopenhauer believed they're simply obeying nature's plan, and the will is using women to make it happen. In his view, the moment a man thinks he's falling in love, he's already being pulled by forces he doesn't understand. He's not loving with his soul. He's serving the will. To make his point clear, Schopenhauer once said, The sexual impulse is the most perfect example of the folly of the will to live. He saw romance not as freedom, but as a trick, a powerful one, because it makes men believe they are in control when they are not, and that's why he warned men to look beyond beauty, beyond emotions, beyond the surface. Because beneath it all, the will is always working, pushing life forward, using desire as its tool. To Schopenhauer, a man who doesn't see this is not just blind, he's a puppet. But Schopenhauer didn't stop at theory. He warned men about the real consequences of not seeing this truth. He believed that when a man lets his desires guide his choices, especially in love, he slowly gives up his freedom, not all at once, but piece by piece. It starts with small compromises, changing your goals, lowering your ambitions, ignoring your instincts. You don't notice it at first because it feels like love, but over time, Schopenhauer believed that love can become a cage. He watched men sacrifice their dreams for relationships they didn't fully understand. He saw them become emotionally trapped, financially weakened, and spiritually drained. And in many cases, they never realized it happened because the illusion was so powerful. In his famous essay On Women, Schopenhauer described marriage as one of the greatest traps a man can fall into. To him, it wasn't a sacred bond. It was a contract written by nature using emotion as ink. He wrote that marriage transforms a man from a free individual into a tool of the species. Suddenly, he's not thinking about truth, beauty, or knowledge. He's thinking about providing, surviving, and obeying a life he didn't truly choose. This fear wasn't about hate. It was about clarity. Schopenhauer believed that most people don't want to see the truth. They'd rather live inside the illusion because it feels safer. But to him, true freedom meant waking up, no matter how uncomfortable it is. He challenged men to ask themselves the hardest question: are you living your life, or just playing your part in someone else's plan? And in his view, the strongest man wasn't the one who won battles or earned power. It was the man who saw through nature's tricks and chose his mind over his desire, because Schopenhauer believed that kind of man couldn't be controlled, not by society, not by illusion, and definitely not by the will. So what does a man do with this knowledge? If everything Schopenhauer said is true, if love is an illusion, if desire is a trap, and if nature is using us without our permission, how do we live with that? Schopenhauer's answer wasn't easy, but it was honest. You don't escape the will by fighting it. You escape it by understanding it. He believed that the first step to freedom is awareness. Most people are trapped because they don't know. They're trapped. They follow their feelings without question. They think falling in love, chasing desire, and starting families are personal choices. But in truth, they are repeating a script written by something older than them. The moment you see the script, you get the chance to step outside of it. Schopenhauer called this a kind of inner awakening. It doesn't mean you hate women or relationships or beauty. It just means you stop letting those things own you. You admire beauty without chasing it. You feel desire without being ruled by it. This idea of detachment became a key part of Schopenhauer's worldview. He believed that the happiest, most peaceful life wasn't filled with pleasure. It was free from constant wanting. When you stop chasing what the will wants, you finally hear what you want. That's where real strength begins. In many ways, Schopenhauer's philosophy sounds cold, but at its core, it's about reclaiming your mind. It's about refusing to live like a machine, pushed around by instincts you don't understand. It's about standing still in a world that keeps pulling you and saying, "No, I will choose my path." He believed that the man who can do this, who can see the beauty in a woman and not lose himself, who can feel desire and not follow it blindly, is not less of a man. He is more, because he has something most men never get: the power to walk away from illusion and toward truth. And for Schopenhauer, that kind of power was greater than love, greater than pleasure, even greater than life itself. And that's why Schopenhauer feared this one thing about women more than death. Because death, to him, was simple. It was natural. It came once, and it ended everything. But the illusion created by desire, that was something far more dangerous. It didn't kill you, it kept you alive but asleep. You could spend your whole life thinking you were choosing, thinking you were free, while every step was secretly guided by something you never questioned. He saw women not as villains, but as symbols of the will's power. And he saw men, especially those who prided themselves on strength and reason, fall without ever realizing why. Not because women forced them, but because their own desires led them straight into the trap. That was the tragedy Schopenhauer couldn't ignore. A man could conquer the world, yet lose himself in the arms of someone he thought he chose. And so, his warning wasn't meant to create hatred. It was meant to wake people up, to pull back the curtain, to make men think twice before giving their mind away in exchange for a feeling they don't fully understand. Because in the end, the real danger wasn't women. It was forgetting who you are in pursuit of something that was never really yours. And to Schopenhauer, that was a fate far worse than death.